Hello, in this tutorial we'll be going over the insert statement. And what we'll be doing here is we need a fresh query, and then this time we're going to work in the error log. And we're going to go over what some of this stuff is and how it will work. So the first thing we need to do though is we need to learn how to perform the insert, or at least the syntax. So it's insert into, and then whatever the column name, or I'm sorry, the data table name is. So in this case we're inserting into here. And then I want to specify by the column name. So here's our columns. I'm just going to drag this over here, and I want them listed out. And currently we don't have any errors listed in our database, so we're just going to make some up. Now this one right here, this one we will not need, and I'll show you why. We won't need to put any value in here because this is a seed, and we'll go over seeds later on. So ID specification is yes, is identity, yes. So ID increment by 1, ID is a seed, yes. So 1 is true and 0 is false in the wonderful world of SQL when you're looking at this. So this is going to increment by 1. You could set this value to anything you want, and then seed value is obviously 1. But so what we have here, this is an identity. So it'll auto add to this value, this ID value, every time that you insert a new value. And we'll see that actually occur. So first things first, though, we need to actually put some information in here, and we need to get rid of that. And then just for formatting purposes, I'm going to do that. So error time. Well, let's take a look. Actually, why don't we just use a function called getDate. So error time, we know that this is a date time, and it cannot be empty or not null. Not null means that you have to have a value here. So I'm going to use a function called getDate. And we'll go over getDate and functions later on. For right now, we're just going to use the getDate because it wants a date time. And then system username, it wants an varchar value, which is a string. So I'm just going to give it a string. I'm going to use my first name and last name. First initial and last name. It's generally how an error message would go, or how you would have a username set up. And then, whoops. So this is an integer, or int. So this is a number. So we're just going to say 1. And then error severity, this can be null. So we'll just say null, because it can be null. And error state can be null too, so we'll just say it's null. Error procedure can be null. We'll just say null. Error line can also be null. And then error message cannot be null. So we just need to say something like this is a test. So we're going to go ahead and execute. Okay, so we didn't get any errors, which is obviously always a good sign. So next thing we want to do is we want to actually see our error. So we want to write our select statement. And we're going to grab all this, because this is all what we want to see. In case you're all wondering, I held shift and pressed tab and it moves it backwards. And that's how that little trick works. And that's just a formatting thing. So in the table that we're pulling from is obviously the DVO error log. Now there's only one record in here, so we're just going to select this. We're going to execute, and here's our error. So it has all this information that we told it to put in here. And these are null because we told it to be null. Now we can change that to a value. So we could say we're going to replace all these nulls with ones. And then we only want to execute this portion, so we're only going to highlight that. And now let's go ahead and reselect. So now as you can see, these that were null, we now put in a value. So let's go ahead and throw an error. So let's say that we want these to be a string. Actually, let's keep it down to this. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to put in values that are not integers. So 1 pp. This is going to throw an error. And let's take a look at that error when we try to insert it so we can see what it's saying. So it's saying the conversion failed when converting the varchar value 1 pp to the data type int. So if we look where we're at, so here's our time, name, error number, error severity. So here's where our problem is. And what it's saying is that 1 pp, so we come over here and look at error severity. You see that it's an integer. And what we have here is a string. We don't have a whole number. So if you look at this, this is a whole number, and this is a string. So we need to change that. Now what we could do is we could do this, and this should still pass. Because it'll just convert that string to a number. So let's go ahead and select again. And there we go. The only reason why this worked is because it was able to convert this string value into a whole number. If this was not a whole number, it would throw an error. So for example, if I put 0.1, or let's say 0.5, that's a decimal, it should throw an error. Yes. So it's saying that that's not a whole number. And even if I did this, it should still throw an error. Or maybe it rounded it up. Let's take a look. I've never actually tried that before, so let's take a look. Oh, okay, I see. It rounded it down. So it dropped to 0.5 and only took this portion. Because it can only be a whole number. So that's how the insert works, and that's how you're actually going to insert your data into your database. Now, I know what you're thinking. This is extremely cumbersome. This would take forever. And I agree. This would take forever if you literally had to come in here and you had to type out your data like this every time. So if you're watching this video and you're aspiring to be a software developer, there's a wonderful thing called stored procedures that we will talk about later on. And in using stored procedures, you'll have these queries that you'll pass in data to, similar to this, but they'll already be pre-written for you. And the user screen itself, like where the user enters his data, it grabs that information and then it puts it in here for you and it executes this. And I know that that may seem a little strange right now, but in the future it'll actually start to make sense to you. So for now, just understand the concept of inserting data into the data table via the hard way as of using SQL. But there is a better way, and we will go over it. It's more user friendly. later on, maybe not in this tutorial series, but definitely like in the C# or the Visual Basic .NET series, we will definitely go over that concept.